Alright, and welcome back for the second test match with white green tokens. We're going to keep. This hand's pretty good. It can gain infinite life on turn 4, pretty much. I don't really know what that indicates, my opponent going with a red green land. That's also a good card to have, of course. So we're going to go turn 1 Soul's Attendant. And then depending on what I find out my opponent is playing, I might go Benevolent Bodyguard the next turn. Insolent Neonate. Looks like we're up against, can I? No, it's not gonna let me. Okay, I guess because I'm faded. Looks like we're up against Red-Green Madness. They don't play much removal. Since I drew that, I'm just gonna play that. Not going to attack because my opponent could just block, and I don't really feel like trading. I don't think it really helps to trade here, especially when I can easily just take one and not do anything. So one thing I might do is I might not play this guy next turn. I might wait till turn 4 so I can go Benevolent Bodyguard at the same time. But we'll see. I'm not gonna block here. My opponent wants to get in for 1. They're more than allowed to. Well, so drawing Commune with the Gods kind of makes this a bit different. So what I'm going to do is I'll Commune with the Gods first. And I'm not going to attack because my opponent could easily have Arrogant Worm. I'm not going to run those in. Another Benevolent Bodyguard is really good here. So I'm going to play that out now. Gain a couple life and then pass the turn. And then I doubt my opponent is playing main deck Electrickery. So, yes, always yield. More or less, I'm pretty sure that it's just going to work out for me. And then I'm just going to pass the turn. Can't F8 anymore because I have Benevolent Bodyguard, but, you know. I don't think they play too much removal, but I'm pretty sure that my opponent probably plays... Ooh, Old School Arrogant Worm, sweet. Probably plays Lightning Bolt. I'm pretty sure they probably play maybe a couple Lightning Axe as well. Nope, not stop auto yield. Auto yield, and yes. So, we'll see what happens here. My opponent's probably going to attack me for 4. I will take it. And then next turn, I'm going to go Midnight Guard and Presence of... I'm going to go, sorry, Midnight Guard and 2 Benevolent... and a second Benevolent Bodyguard. So, we'll see what happens. Alright, Juice Spark Armor doesn't really do anything right now. I'm actually going to play the second Bodyguard first. So that if my opponent has 2 Lightning Bolts, it's not I play this, and then in response they go to hit it. I give a protection, then in response they go to hit it again. This way they need 3 removal spells. That's really why I did that. I'm going to go Midnight Guard now. And then pass the turn. So Spiresuck Armor is pretty good here. It just in case my opponent, for some reason, has main deck Electrickery. I don't think that my opponent will, but it's always safe to actually check it out. So, again, this is an indication where the aggro matchup is pretty good for you because you have 8 Soul Wardens. It's really hard for them to race, and then obviously once you have this combo out, you pretty much can't lose the game anymore. So what's going to happen is we're... Alright. You know, we're going to see how much life I feel like gaining and how many creatures I feel like putting on the board. Oh, I'm sorry you had to hear that. So, Red Green Madness is a deck that's picked up a little bit of speed in the Pauper meta. It's not a great deck, and it's certainly not a bad deck. It's a pretty good deck. It's just the fact that it has the same problems that Madness has always had, is 1-for-1 removals, really good against it. And it's considerably slower than most of the other aggro decks you could be playing. So there isn't really much of a reason to play it when you could play things like Stompy or White Weenie even. But the thing that it has going for it is the speed, of course, in which the deck can have. I mean, you could easily just go, turn 1 Root Wallet, turn 2 Wild Mongrel, turn 3 Arrogant Worm, and win the game in just a few turns. And, alright, well, moment of truth, I suppose. And that's really where it's good. Now, one thing you do have to note here, of course, is... okay. I'm going to give it Pro Red. One thing to note here is against decks where they're playing things like Vines of Vastwood, if you give your Midnight Guard Pro Green, well, unfortunately, it's not going to help because by giving it Pro Green, now the Presence of God can't attach to it. So you're kind of screwed on that front. So be careful when you're playing against decks that could have Vines of Vastwood in it. I don't believe that this one is one of them, but... And now you see exactly why I decided to wait to have both Benevolent Bodyguards out onto the battlefield. Now the good thing is, after this turn, I guess give it Pro Red again. Doesn't really make a difference. I guess I could have given it Pro Black in case I wanted to attack with it, sure. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and go off a little bit, so I'll be back. Alright, so I decided to make 26 tokens and go to 75 life. I feel like that is safe. So the good thing is, if my opponent goes to bolt my Midnight Guard again, I can gain some more life in response, and hopefully my opponent does not have Electrickery plus that, because then this game is going to go on for a little longer than I'd like. Alright, so my opponent went Tormenting Voice, discarding Fiery Temper, so I decided to gain a bit more life, make a few more tokens, just in case they do have main deck Electrickery. Now I have a little bit of free reign to go Battle Screech and Sen's Enlistment. Looks like my opponent did not, so I get the win. Oop, I did not mean to do that. I'm going to go to Card View. So this matchup is quite interesting because they have so many bolt effects. Prismatic Strands is another good way to, protect your creatures. I don't think you'll need Rally the Peasants all that much, but it's certainly not a bad plan to have. Again, Spireslick Armor, of course, is still good because of that, but I'm going to take out the Rally the Peasants. I think that they they don't have flying creatures, they don't have a lot of ways, so your best card is going to be Battle Screech. You could also just swarm the board. I think Journey to Nowhere might not be all that good. It doesn't really seem like it's going to help all that much. But again, with that being said, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down a land. I'm going to take out a Colony Garden. The reason why is I'd rather take out a land that comes into play tapped than a land that comes into play untapped. And I value the Karoo because it adds 2 mana, and I value the Blossoming Sands because it adds a green or a white. And the 0-1 token without Rally is not really going to make much of a difference. With that, I'm going to bring in 2 Journey to Nowheres. Now, I'm going to take out Sen's Enlistment also for an Auramancer, just an extra way to get back the Presence of God. Just so I have that. But your best card in this matchup, in my opinion, your 2 best cards are Prismatic Strands and Battle Screech, so keep that in mind. You don't really want to take out your Soul Sisters because that's going to be your way of actually sustaining your life total and winning the game. So, make sure you remember that. I'm going to keep this hand. I think this hand's pretty good. It's got its Prismatic Strands. It's a little slow, but it does have a Soul's Attendant, and it does have pretty much everything you need. So you just have to hope that your opponent doesn't have a very quick clock, which this deck is not typically known for. Looks like my opponent did mull to 5. And a holdout settlement. I really haven't had enough games where holdout settlement has really, been bad, per se. I've had games where it's certainly been very not good. But in this regard, I don't think that this is going to this hand's actually not going to benefit from it. See if my opponent has a Basking Root Wall they want to play, or Fiery Temper at the end of turn. Yeah, they have a Lightning Bolt. Okay, well, Lightning Bolt's understandable. Excuse me. If they're using a Lightning Bolt on that, that might mean they have another one. So it's very... Oh, well, that kind of changes things now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go Soul Warden. And I'm going to go Blossoming Sands. And the reason for that is I want to be able to, next turn, go Battle Screech. Rather than go Commune with the Gods now. Yeah, they had another Lightning Bolt. Okay. It's not... In this instance, it's not so much the Soul Warden that is so important. It's really the Midnight Guards with the Commune with the Gods and the Prismatic Strands. So what I want to do is, I really want to get Prismatic Strands into the graveyard as quickly as possible, so that when I play Midnight Guard, I can protect it from a bolt, or I can protect my tokens from Electrickery. And this card's kind of annoying. Benevolent Bodyguard, huh? Well, that does change things quite a bit now. So... I could make some tokens, but I think what I'll do is I'm just going to play Bodyguard into Midnight Guard. And then pass the turn. And if my opponent drew another bolt, I will protect it. And if my opponent just keeps drawing into good cards, well, Magic is a cruel person sometimes. Either way. I'm not going to block with either of my creatures, in case you were wondering. I don't really care about taking 6. Oh, well. I might trade with this. If my opponent's just gonna draw perfectly. It's kind of annoying, I'm not gonna lie. Now, the only reason I'm worried is because taking 9 here and going to 8, I could get burned out. Even with Prismatic Strands. I'll take 9. I don't really think that's a big deal. I mean, come on, seriously. The odds of me being burned out from 8? Come on. They're a lot higher than I'd like to think. Plus, the other thing is I can hold up Prismatic Strands and actually get value next turn. So that is something to keep in mind. What I really want to draw is an untapped land, but might not get that luxury. So we'll have to see. 3 mana for a Fiery Temper. Alright. Well, I'll give it Pro Red. If I could top deck a Presence of God, that would also be very helpful. No, that also helps quite a bit. Yeah, that also helps. That actually helps way more. So now, the problem here is going Celestial Sanctuary on this. Oh, but I guess I could go Commune with the Gods for Presence of God since it's only 5 mana. For some reason I'm thinking this is 3 mana. I don't know why. So that actually was pretty much one of the perfect draws that I could have. And I'm just going to pass. Just so I can go Prismatic Strands. Maybe my opponent will not attack first and use removal. I'm not really sure. I guess I kind of have to do this now. Can't imagine they have Flaring Pain in their deck, but I suppose maybe they do. Extremely possible. Yep. Well, they're drawing pretty much picture perfect, which is rather annoying. I'm not going to lie to you. It is quite annoying. Because for a mulligan to 5, this is pretty much the best draw I think that I could have seen. So it is quite frustrating. It is quite frustrating. what we're going to do is we're going to do this. And then... Oh, right, I forgot about that. Oh, no, not stop. Okay, yes. And then what we're going to do is do this. Tap for a white. If I'm going to block with a Soul Warden, I'd rather, you know. And then gain 4 life. Always yield. Oh, my opponent's, I guess, waiting? Kind of weird. To be fair, I am drawing somewhat perfect as well, so can't be too upset by it. And then we'll gain another 4 life. And another life. And we're right back in this game. So then, what I can do now is I can double block, and if I so choose to, I can go Prismatic Strands to give pro red. Now, again, if my opponent has Electrickery, well, in a bit of trouble right now. I don't think they do, but I can't really play around Electrickery, or else I can't really put myself in a good position. So, just gonna go ahead and do this. If they have Electrickery and they've drawn that perfect, I mean, kudos to my opponent. And it looks like they did. Or at least they've immediately tapped a green. Maybe they're going to give a Giant Growth or something. Red. Oh no, I think they thought that we had already went through the process. They were just tapping quickly. Or not. It's possible they have Vines of Vastwood in their hand. Ooh, that was really good. Alright, so let's commune with the gods first, just to see what I'm working with here. A Midnight Guard and a Presence of God and another Battle Screech and a Prismatic Strand. So pretty much everything that I need. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Midnight Guard. And the reason for that is I have 3 more copies of Presence of God plus the 1 Auramancer in the deck. So I think that's just better. And I'm going to go ahead and play Battle Screech, gain a ton of life. And now I can start winning the game that I have protection from 1, 2, and 3. That I have protection from Electrickery. And then 1, 2, and 3. Then we're going to get him for 4. Actually, we're going to get him for... No, we're going to get him for 4, right? Because these are untapped. And all of a sudden, I'm back at 30. So, like I said, this is really where, you know, this deck... this deck shines against aggro decks. Sorry, I'm still not feeling well. Slurring my words. You know, even with my opponent's somewhat perfect draws for a mulligan to 5, and me getting a bit salty, I'm still way ahead. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've drawn quite perfectly myself to counteract my opponent, so yeah, I guess that just goes, you know, pretty much both ways. Alright, there's another Commune with the Gods. We'll do that again first. Actually, we're going to use this time. Journey to Nowhere. Well, it's kind of interesting. I'm not really sure what I want to take here. I could take another Soul Warden, but I think a Journey to Nowhere will be just as fine. So we'll go ahead and do that. See how my opponent reacts. If they have a Vines of Vastwood, they'll use it. And they do. Okay. Now that was kind of a bad play from my opponent because they could have given it to... Because this isn't a May effect. So they could have given it to their guy beforehand. And then I don't think they can play anything in instant speed. So I'm leaving open 1 guy for his Max Strands. Maybe I should have left open 2, but I don't think so. Hit my opponent for 11 down to 6 and pass the turn. So my opponent could have given this hexproof essentially, and then I would have to target one of my own dudes and I'd lose a token for free. But it's kind of an oversight that most people miss. So I don't really blame my opponent for it. Alright, looks like we win the game. My opponent's discarding Arrogant Worm. I'm going to take 7 and go to 17. Never mind. Well, I'm going to take 7 and go to 17 anyway, but... I guess my opponent could have a Fog. Which would be annoying, but, well, my opponent's gotta do what they gotta do. Benevolent Bodyguard, huh? Alright, well, yeah, looks like they're giving me the good games. GG's. Well played, opponent. Alright, hold on a second. Alright, so my opponent and I were just having a small little chat. I told them about the Vines of the Vastwood play. So basically what I'm talking about is Vines of the Vastwood says target creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control this turn. Oh, they do have Electrickery. So basically what would happen is, since my opponent only has one creature on the battlefield, when I play Journey, in response while it's on the stack, my opponent can then Vines of Vastwood their blood mad vampire. Let me just do this. And so what would happen is, the only legal target would be one of my creatures, because this says can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control this turn. So it's again, it's something small because it doesn't come up very often. Usually you'll have multiple creatures in play, but it's just something to keep in mind. So just saying. Alright, and I did get the victory. My opponent called Prismatic Strands an OP card, and I responded with, yes, Pauper does have a lot of them, but Prismatic Strands is probably top 5 best sideboard cards, or just probably top 5 best spells in Pauper, to be fair. Just a second. Alright, and Zephyrus, I believe, was that person's name. If you ever see this video, thank you so much for playing. It was very nice to meet you. I hope to meet you again. So, you've seen what this deck can do. Even against a blue-black deck with Nauseas and Echoing Decays and whatnot, this deck still has game. And against an aggro deck like Red-Green Madness, you saw just how powerful and easily overtaking this deck can be. What's my verdict on this deck? Well, it's kind of an interesting question. I like the deck a lot. I like what it's doing. But the problem is, at the same time, it can kind of be a one-trick pony. A large part of your deck is based on doing this combo, while the other part of your deck is based on using slow yet powerful token spells to overpower your opponent and win the game with Rally the Peasants. Against a control deck with a lot of nausea or electrickery effects and counterspells that might not work out as well as you wanted to, but against a lot of green decks or the aggro decks with cards like Spire Silk Armor and Prismatic Strands and 8 Soul Warden effects and Benevolent Bodyguard, it's not very hard to piece together the combo and eventually just win in one big turn. It's actually not hard at all. So, would I play this deck right now? Well, yeah, I don't see a reason why you shouldn't. I mean, there's not as much control going around, and there's a lot of aggro decks that you're going to see. You can see Burn, you can see Goblins, you can see Zoo-type decks, you can see White Weenie, Elves, really anything you can think of. That's where this deck shines, is in the aggro matchups. Not so much control, but again, like I said, it has a lot of game against control. The sideboard, well, it needs a lot of work. Although I think for Aerial Volley should stay in your sideboard because Delver is probably the most played deck right now. And, well, the rest of the sideboard obviously can be worked at, as like I said. So my verdict is, I would play this deck, but it's quite meta-dependent. If you think that there's a lot of aggro decks going on that day or that week, this deck is definitely a good deck to take in. It can get a lot of free wins. If you think there's a lot of control, well, this deck might not be for you because you might have to work a little bit harder, and it's not really that easy to be control anyway. The control decks like Flurry of the Horns control, Kuldotha Boros, just, Teachings, Blue-Black Flicker, all these decks where they have way too many answers and a lot of AoE. For most of you who don't know what AoE stands for, it stands for Area of Effect. So it's a Wrath of God type effect, like Nausea or Electrickery, Pestilence, things like that. A deck like Tron might be different, because in a deck like Tron, as we all know, that depends on how many color sources they have. So if they only have one color source, but Tron, and you have a Benevolent Bodyguard, excuse me, it's not that hard to go this combo and then win the next turn. Now, that also brings me to one more problem. you can't win the same turn you go this combo because you have no way to gain haste. One thing that I was thinking about that I'm sure Deluxikov would look at me like I'm a psychopath, but maybe you could play Metamorphose plus Goblin Bushwhacker like Revolt Zoo does in Modern. Not only would that help Midnight Guard and the Presence of God combo win in one turn, but it could also just smooth out the mana or be able to allow you to combo with Battle Screech and other things over time. Where would you make room for that? Well, I'm not exactly sure, but hey, I'm not a brewer. And also, the Vines of the Vastwood trick, if that's not how that works, feel free to yell at me, as I thought that's how it works. So, keep that in mind. Either way, again, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this session. Deluxikov, thank you for 5-0ing with this deck, so that I could do a deck tech with it. If you guys want to see his deck list is on Goldfish. You can find him easily. I'm sure he has many results on that site. So, again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you make any changes, let me know. If you like the Metamorphose Goblin Bushwhacker plan, do let me know. So thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.